Hey everyone, Ryan Badgley from the Barfly Tailgate Show, and football season is kicking off, and I know you feel like I do, so to steal a phrase from WWE superstar Daniel Bryan, yes, yes, yes! And I also know you are like me and you love the work Allen Robinson is putting out on the football field, but also off the field. That's why we're so pleased to partner with the Allen Robinson Within Reach Foundation. Their work provides educational opportunities and resources to low-income and inner-city Chicago students to help put success within reach. How can you help? Immediately you can visit allenrobinson12.org and learn more about what they are doing and make a donation. If you can't donate money, can you donate your time? The foundation is always looking for volunteers. And please let others know about their great work. In the coming weeks, the Barroom Network will hold some fundraising efforts, and we hope that you'll be a part of those. And again, let your family and friends know. Now, how about them Chicago Bears? I'm so psyched up for this season. I think A-Rob has 100 catches and double-digit touchdowns. Now let's bear down.
The following program is for mature audiences only. Football talk shows, most of them sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Not this one. That's because it features the former director of college scouting with the Chicago Bears. He worked on the staff that drafted, the likes of Devin Hester, Olin Kreutz, Lance Briggs. He's the man who takes shit from absolutely nobody. He's Greg Gabriel. Gabriel joins longtime Chicago sports reporter David Schuster. And this is, accordingly, Gabriel Schuster Talk Bears.
And welcome into the undefeated Gabriel Schuster podcast. I'm David Schuster, and he, of course, is the one and only Greg Gabriel. As we thoroughly dissect the Bears' huge come-from-behind victory over the Detroit Lions on Sunday, 27-23. And Greg, I say undefeated because just like the NFL, you and I had no preseason games, so it's for real now. And Greg, thank heavens for the perpetually dumb and sloppy Detroit Lions.
Hey, all I know is a win is a win.
You're right.
And I'll tell you, when I was working for the Bears, the best feeling in the world was walking into Hallis Hall after a win because you could smile, you could have fun. They had a nice lunch set up for everybody. After a loss, you weren't allowed to talk. You weren't allowed to smile. It looked like you were in a funeral home. They still had the lunch, but nobody looked at each other during the lunch. And it was just strange. And you had to act that way for like a day and a half before you could put a smile on your face again.
Well, there's a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces. There's also a lot of astonishment on a lot of people's faces. Come on, let's face it. Through 3 quarters, this podcast would have been very much different than what it's about to be. I mean, we're going to also criticize a lot of things that happened in yesterday's game by the Bears, because there were a lot of things to criticize. I think there's no question about that. But let's face it, the Lions handed the game to the Bears in the fourth quarter, even though Mitch Trubisky played extremely well, as bad as he was through 3 quarters, and we'll go over that too. He was that good in the fourth quarter.
Well, I think the final stats in the fourth quarter were 8 of 10, 100-some-odd yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, didn't throw a pick all day. He had a 143 passer rating for the fourth quarter, which is as high as you can get. He had basically a perfect passer rating in the fourth quarter. The thing is, it's a 4-quarter game. And, too many people want to get all bent out of shape about what goes on early in a game, and you got to play the whole game. And there's different things that go on through the course of a game that can change the momentum or whatever. In all honesty, I thought early in the fourth quarter when Mitch took that sack and fumbled the ball, I thought that was it. And it was time to make a change because, he had lost it. He had lost confidence. But then they got the ball back. He took him downfield 3 times in a row. And I'll tell you what that's going to do. Having been around pro players my whole adult life, that is going to raise his level of confidence way up here. And, obviously this is not video, so you can't see what I just did. But he's going into practice. They can't go in because of COVID rules. They can't go in there today. They'll have meetings tomorrow. They'll start practice on Wednesday. He is going to be a lot more confident about his game on Wednesday than he was at any point last week in practice preparing for the Lions.
And speaking of Wednesday, not only are we doing this podcast today on Monday, dissecting yesterday's game, but coming up Wednesday afternoon, we'll have our second podcast as the season progresses on, and going forward, we are now going to be doing not one, but two podcasts each and every week, and the next one will be on Wednesday as we look ahead to the Giants game. We don't know, what the Giants, as we record this on Monday morning, the Giants are playing later this evening. I anticipate, and I said this, Greg, I said the Bears are going to win the first 3 games of the regular season. I'm going to stick to that. Thank heavens for the Lions yesterday, and we're going to go over all of that. Anyway, what I'd like to do, and we're going to hear from Matt Nagy in this podcast, we're going to hear from Mitch Trubisky, we're also going to hear from Tony Gonzalez, and boy, if you were watching halftime yesterday on Fox, you heard Gonzalez say, yank him, get him out of there, I've seen enough of them.
And I think Strahan pretty much said the same thing. I saw
some people even saying it after the game, too.
Maybe a minute of that halftime show. I was switching. I was watching the Bills game a little bit because I'm from Buffalo, and they kicked the shit out of the Jets.
Yeah, I also saw you say the Jets are still the Jets. I saw you on Twitter yesterday. I followed you during the game.
I have fun on Twitter on game day.
So do I. If you ever want to look up the word cynic, you're going to see my face in the dictionary because I'm an all-time cynic. Anyway, what I'd like to do here, during each and every Bears game, I always, much like your boss, Jerry Angelo, used to do, I write down little notes during the game. And I do this in chronological order, and I'd like to go over some of these and get your comments. All right, the very first thing, when the Bears had the ball early in the game, what I loved right off the bat, and they kept this up throughout the game, utilization of Cordarrelle Patterson. They're going to utilize this guy in all facets. They ran him out of the backfield. He caught a pass out of the backfield. He had that 45-yard kickoff return in the second half. I love already how they're utilizing him.
Do you have the stats, Aldo? I want to see how many touches he had for the game. It was probably between returns, receptions, and carries around 10. You get him 10, 12, 14 touches a game, you're in good shape. And we talked about that, in past weeks leading up to this opener, that it's all about, he had 6 total touches. That's it, including returns. Okay, I would have thought he had a few more than that. But
I'm sorry, including returns, it's 9.
9, okay. I would think you want 10 to 12 a game for him, 10 to 12 a game for Tariq Cohen, between receptions, returns, carries, everything. And then you're balancing that offense. I'll tell you what I really liked about the offense, in previous years. And I saw this, with the Notre Dame Duke game too, the same type of thing. You get away from your game plan, and you can't do that. You want to run the football, and the Bears were behind, and they still ran the football. And that's important. You got to control the line of scrimmage. I thought the offensive line, overall, there's a couple breakdowns in pass protection, but they controlled the line of scrimmage, especially in the run game. The run game as a whole was dynamite. I was thinking, because the first time that Adrian Peterson came in, he popped off he had a short run on his first carry, and then he popped off that long run. I go, oh God, Twitter's gonna open up with all these. See, the Bears should have signed him. No, they shouldn't have. The running game was great yesterday.
Oh, it's fantastic. 28 rushes, 149 yards. It's an average of 5.3 yards a carry. You do that all season, you are going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll do that all season.
You're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know if you're going to get in the Super Bowl, but you're going to be in the playoffs.
If they even do that, okay, whatever. You know what is also interesting, and I'm jumping all over the place here, there wasn't one running back in football yesterday who ran for 100 yards. The game has changed so dramatically to me. I mean, I know that's just the way it is. You saw Peterson break off a couple of long runs, and I thought Dick Stockton was going to explode in his pants, every time he talked about him. It was just sort of sickening after a while. But, the run game, which is important, don't get me wrong, but it's been de-emphasized overall over the last 5, 10, 15 years.
But on top of that, yes, the game's being de-emphasized, and it's become more of a passing game, but teams aren't going with that so-called bell cow. You're doing running back by committee,
yeah.
And you're using guys to the strength. The Bears did a good job with that yesterday. And I tell you the truth, I was kind of surprised that they used Cohen inside a few times as much as they did, and he did a good job.
Well, if there's a hole and he's quick burst into the hole, then he's going to get into the secondary. Unfortunately, he's so small and so slight compared to most guys that any kind of arm in front of him is going to bring him down at the line of scrimmage. Another thing that was really impressive to me, and again, I'm jumping all over the place here, the Bears had 11 different receivers catch a pass yesterday. That, to me, is very impressive because I can go back to many, many, many games over the last 5 to 10 years with the Bears where maybe 3, 4, or 5 guys would catch it. 11 different guys caught passes yesterday. That's impressive to me.
Yes, and even though I forgot my notes as I came to the studio today, I do remember the first note. Wims started the game in the slot receiver position. That was the first surprise to me. And then the way they utilized the receiver. Darnell Mooney, a rookie, played a lot.
Yep.
Got a lot and came up with some big plays. So you're going to see more and more of him. The one thing I was disappointed in, and maybe I'm going all over the place like you are here today, they didn't utilize the tight ends the way I thought they would. Part of it was, Graham missed some jumps on a couple balls. He had 3 catches. He should have had 5. They threw to Kmet once. Kmet cut to the outside. This was down in the red zone. Kmet cut to the outside. Ball was thrown to the inside. That's always going to, they're going to say that was a bad throw by the quarterback. No, it wasn't. Throw was right by the quarterback. It was a bad route by the tight end. That is what it is. You got a rookie in there. But, all told, I was happy with the way they utilize the wide receivers. I think they'll continue doing that throughout the season.
All right, let me go again chronologically to what I wrote down on my pad of paper yesterday. We're in the first quarter. The Bears faced that big 4th down play, and Mitch was off balance, or not off balance. He was off directional to the wide receiver. I didn't like the pass, and honestly, I'm not even so sure I liked the decision to go for it in that situation. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, what was the yard line that they were on there?
It was like the 38. I'll double check it.
Yeah, but they were in Detroit's zone.
It was 4th and 7 or something like that.
The difference in field position. You're going to punt the ball. It's going in the end zone. If they don't make it, you're giving up 18 yards of field position because the ball's going in the end zone. Play, Andy Reid did it a couple times on Thursday night, went for it. I have no problem going for it. You could question the call, you could question the throw, that type of thing. But I think given the circumstances where they were, the field position they had, 18 yards, not a big deal.
All right, although correct
4th and 7 at the 34.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong about this. They called a timeout before they ran the play. All right. Do you think more than anything else he was trying to instill early confidence in his quarterback?
There was that, and do we kick the field goal and you got a guy unproven for them kicking the field goal? You want to have his first try being a 50-yarder because now here's the difference too. The ball's at the 34-yard line. You're kicking from the 40.5 or the 41. You miss the field goal. You're giving Detroit the ball on, say, the 41-yard line versus the 34-yard line. If you kick the ball, punt the ball, it's going in the end zone. It's just a game of field position and where you want the ball. If you don't make it, where's Detroit going to get the ball?
Well, there was a lot of decision-making by both coaches during the game, and we'll talk about the one on the other side towards the end of the game, which I think was the biggest play of the game when they missed that 55-yard field goal. We'll get to that one. I thought that was the biggest play of the game because
you mean a doink?
No, well, but he missed it.
It was a doink.
It was a doink. Yes, it was. I don't think they should have gone. Well, whatever. We'll get to that in just a little bit also. I'm going chronologically here.
But as long as you brought it up, look at the field position it gave the Bears.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I don't go for it, especially when I'm up 10. Okay, again, I'm getting way ahead of myself here chronologically, but what they should have done, in my estimation, and I couldn't believe they went for it, because the extra 3 points, that gives them a 13-point lead. 2 touchdowns still beats you. If you punt them deep into territory, there was, about 4 minutes to go in the game, roughly, at that point. You're putting them deep in their own territory. You're saying to them, you got to go the length of the field, not once, but twice in 4 minutes, as long as our offense doesn't turn the ball over in some aspect, of which they did anyway, with a stupid pass play on 3rd down by Stafford, and the interception on top of it. So, I mean, the Lions gave the Bears the game. There's no question about it. The coaching decisions by the Lions, the inept play by the Lions, some of the injuries in the second half, and, we have backup players. It all contributed to the Bears coming back and winning the game, which you're right, Greg. That is the most important thing. But the Lions are just a stupid team.
Jamie Collins getting thrown out of the game.
And actually, that's the next thing I wrote down here. Go ahead, Greg, and then we'll talk about that.
No, the Jamie Collins thing, I mean, that was, he looked at the ref, I was just trying to show you what he did. It was stupid.
It was stupid.
Plain out stupid.
It was stupid, but I guess it's automatic that as long as you make contact with the referee, you're automatically out. I would like to see that rule change, because come on. If he wanted to really headbutt the guy would have been planted into the ground. All he did was basically show him. I think that's a stupid rule, personally.
What we don't know is, did he say anything before he did it? And if he just put his head down and went into the ref like that, the flag's going up every single time.
Oh, okay.
I kind of like the rule because, where does it stop? You put your hand on the ref, you can do all sorts of things, and there's such a vague area. It should be a strong demarcation. You touch the ref in any way, you're out.
Well, but that's not the way it is in basketball. It's not even the way it is in baseball. I mean, it's a discretionary call, and in that instance, come on, the guy was obviously just showing him by putting his helmet into his hands, face, body, whatever he was doing.
No, here's where I'll argue with you, though, a little bit on that. Only because after the play was explained to us, and then you see a replay of the play and then you see that, well, I'm just trying to show you what he was doing, but in fast motion, it's a whole different story. Because you don't have a replay in front of you where you got 3 or 4 different people trying to explain something and then say, well, yeah, it really wasn't that bad. But at fast time, during the course of a game, it was a dumb call on his part.
Well, dumb play on his part. And like I said, that's just part of the Lions' MO. I mean, you could take the smartest player around the league and put him in a Lions uniform, and they're going to make a dumb play. But it's led by the coach. The coaches and that unfortunate drop pass in the end zone, which would have won the game for the Lions. And by the way, the talk shows in Detroit, as opposed to the talk shows in Chicago and all the podcasts, on that one play at the end of the game, that changed everything in regards to how you viewed yesterday's game.
Because the shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
Guess what?
The Bears would have lost the game.
Yeah,
obviously.
but shoulda, coulda, woulda doesn't work.
No, I know
the final score at the end was the Bears won.
I know that.
And you know what? Nobody's going to give a damn about a drop pass at the end 4 weeks from now. You're looking at one thing.
100%.
You're looking at a win, and you're trying to make the playoffs.
100%. All right. Later on in the first half, and I thought this at the time, I was screaming at my TV. A terrible sequence by the Bears.
Does your TV yell back at you?
No, it better. Well, it's a smart TV. It's smart enough to know not to do that. Okay. Trust me. Anyway, there was a terrible sequence, and I blame Matt Nagy for this one, where 3 plays, 14 seconds. There was terrible play on the player's part also, but the 14 seconds offense, a terrible sequence, and then they gave the ball right back to the Lions, and the Lions scored. And so here's what I was thinking as that was going on. Let's see if this works. That's my new little toy, Greg. My new little sound effects toy. There's a lot of other good ones in that. There's some giggles in here. We'll play those too, I'm sure.
You know what? Given where the time on the clock, where the Bears had the ball, you want to run some clock. Yeah. Do you want to get some points? Yeah. But what are the chances of getting points at that point? First play got about 3 yards on that little swing pass to Tariq going to the left. he goes out of bounds. He's trying. I get it. He's trying to stop the clock, but now you throw deep on second down. Ball's just overthrown. Now, if he completes the pass, it's a great play, and we're not even having this discussion. But he didn't complete it.
No.
Right. So, and then you throw another incomplete pass on third down. I would have, myself, okay, it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, whatever it was. I would have run the ball and forced Detroit into using a timeout. And then you didn't have a great kick either. So, yeah, it worked. That happens in football. It worked against the Bears. It really changed. It was a huge change in momentum. Bears were basically, even though they were down, I think at that point, they're still controlling the game.
Yep.
And I think their play was better. Yeah, but that gave Detroit a touchdown, and then they come out in the third quarter, and they get another score. That at that point, it was like almost over.
Yeah, and Aldo, I'm sure you probably thought the same thing. I wrote that 14-second sequence came back after the Lions scored, came back to bite them in the gonads.
Absolutely.
And I just thought that was so critical at that stage of the game that if there weren't so many other critical things that happened in the second half, that could have been the turning point in the game right there.
Absolutely. You got a running game that is churning out yards. For them not to call a running play on that sequence is just ridiculous. And to Greg's point, you got to force them to burn a timeout, and the Lions are going to get the ball to start the second half. So why give them the opportunity to get 2 consecutive scores? It's just terrible situational play calling by Matt Nagy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no problem with the deep throw on second down. Go for the big one and see what happens. Mm-hmm. Okay, but on third down, if you miss the pass, and you got to think about it, you miss the pass, the clock stops, and you haven't used any time. So, and they still got their full allotment of timeout. So I think that was, the first down call was all right. I don't even care about the second down call. But the third down call, I didn't like that. Maybe you run on second down and get 5, get 4, because the run game was working good. And then you got a shorter third down, and then you're got a little better field position. But now we're second guessing.
Just one quick thing is that I think that the play calling would have been correct for an offense that is running on all cylinders. But this is a team that doesn't really have a passing offense yet that you can rely on to call 3 straight passes. Now, I understand what you're saying, Greg, but that's a great play call for Tom Brady or
not the way he played yesterday.
That's true.
A younger Tom Brady.
That pick 6 throw was awful.
Oh, we're going to talk about a lot of the quarterback play around the NFL before this podcast is over. All right, so the Bears go into the locker room at halftime. They're down. The momentum is certainly not going their way. They know that the Lions are going to get the ball to open the third quarter. Trubisky's numbers at the half: 8 of 20 for 110 yards and a QB rating of 58.3. Let's see if my little sound machine can come up with something to describe that.
That sounds like me the last 6 months.
I hope I'm pushing the right buttons here. Anyway, so, everybody around the country is thinking, are they going to make a change of quarterback in the second half? And Tony Gonzalez, who does part of the halftime show on Fox, well, he came up with his own thoughts.
You have to make a change, though, don't you? I know it's the first half of the season, but still, Nick Foles, he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's not the flashy quarterback, but we've seen enough out of Trubisky, I think, at this point where you might want to go ahead and make this change sooner rather than later.
He's a Hall of Fame tight end, so I listened to him, and listen, I don't know if I would have made the change at halftime. That I just don't think so. The game was not out of hand, and as it turned out, it turned into the Bears' favor at the end. Now, if the Bears would have lost yesterday's game and the fourth quarter didn't turn out the way it did, I'd probably consider maybe a QB change already in week number 2. But let's face it, after what happened in the fourth quarter, there's not a chance of that happening.
No, and that goes back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast. That fourth quarter play of Mitch is going to instill a confidence in him that should take his game at least in the near future, to the next level.
The only problem I have with what you just said here, though, is I've seen him have good games in the past. He had that 6-touchdown passing game against, Tampa Bay a couple of years ago in 2018. And then, the next week he wasn't very good after that. So he's a very, very up and down quarterback. And I think you saw that yesterday also. I mean, some of his throws, especially in the fourth quarter, the one to Anthony Miller was a thing of beauty. And by the way, I told you I love Anthony Miller. I think he's going to have a big season as long as he stays healthy. That's just, my 2 cents.
Speaking of that play, as long as I'm thinking about it, there was a couple tweets, and then I read about it in Peter King's column too. I guess on that play, and you got to watch number 12, Robinson. Ball comes out of Mitch's hand, and Robinson puts up his hands, touchdown. That being the ball just left his hands. He knew it was a touchdown right away. And they talked about it, and I don't even know where he was on the field to see it, and he was the number one receiver on that. And Miller, Anthony, was the number 2, but Robinson, was watching how the plays unfold, and he just put his hands up.
No, it was a thing of beauty, and again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, we open up the third quarter, and the opening drive by the Lions where they go and score the touchdown. I thought the defense just wasn't ready to perform in the third quarter. They were shaky. There was some missed tackles. There was maybe even some missed assignments in the secondary. And Stafford probably played at his best right then and there. Now, he did some stupid things in the fourth quarter, but I thought in the third quarter he played well and the defense didn't. And then there was this one play, a roughing the passer by Roy Robertson Harris, which I'm sorry. I mean, listen, when I was growing up, you could do almost anything in the NFL. And I know they've cut back on a lot of stuff, but come on, that was not a roughing the passer. I defy anybody to tell me, I mean, I know the rules, but it's just not.
Even with the new rules, I question that particular call, but hey, they called it. It is what it is. But getting back to the defense, I was disappointed with the defense the whole day. I don't know what the final yardage was, but I thought they gave up too many yards on the ground. I tweeted out at one point, Eddie Goldman's being missed. His presence in the middle, the Detroit offensive line was winning the battle of the line of scrimmage at that point. But part of it was the linebacker play. Danny Trevathan was getting fooled by some things. He was not stepping up. He was basically, I don't know where his head was. He's taking steps back instead of steps forward on certain plays and giving Peterson some room to run. And then, to stay with Trevathan, he struggled in coverage. And as we said off air, there's sometimes I wonder, why are you even putting him in a position where he has to cover? He doesn't have the athleticism or the speed. Danny Trevathan, he plays fast because he's got great instincts, but he's not a 4.55 guy. He's a 4.7 guy at best, and that's when he came out of college. And to put him in a position where he's got to cover a crossing receiver one-on-one, he's going to lose that battle 80%, 90% of the time.
All right, let me ask you this. Robert Quinn did not play yesterday, so we've always talked going into this season that if you got the two bookends with Mack and Quinn, and they're both rushing the quarterback, and the Bears only had one quarterback sack yesterday, and it wasn't by any of the linebackers, so I think Quinn not being on the field probably hurt Mack to a certain degree, but I also didn't see Khalil Mack around the football that much. Help me out if I'm wrong about this.
I think he had 4 tackles, and it was like last year, he was getting double up. Now, he makes his presence felt. He occupies people. They're concerned with where he is on the field, and they're putting 2 guys on him all the time. So that part's good, but at the same time, I don't think you got much out of Mingo. And I got to go back and still review the coach's tape of this. I get that package from NFL.com, and I haven't looked at the game tape yet where you get the sideline and the end zone view and see that. But I wasn't that impressed with Mingo's play. In fact, in the third quarter, one of the guys who made a great play from the outside linebacker position, and I got to talk about my XFL team a little bit here, was Vaughters. Made a nice play. Yeah. And Vaughters was our number 1 defensive pick in the XFL draft last year, but then he decided to to go on the Bears practice squad, which is probably a smart move on his part. But I thought last year in the preseason, this guy was a hell of a talent.
Just one quick thought about Khalil Mack is Taylor Decker, the left tackle for the Lions, I thought
played well.
Played very well. And then when they moved Mack over to the other side of the line against the replacement right tackle, Tyrell Cosby, I think is his name, that's when the Lions would roll away from Mack or start lending in the double and sometimes triple team, which is they came up with a good game plan end to end. Decker did a really nice job on Mack.
All right, so go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, in fairness, there's a couple times when you watch the replay, Mack was getting held. There was one time where Crosby had his arms right around his neck, and it's like
I
no
counted
call
4.
at all.
Yeah, I counted 4 times. Yeah.
All right, he doesn't get the calls he should get.
Okay, we're into the fourth quarter, and I'm going to go to me again, the biggest play of yesterday's game. You always focus on a certain thing. Listen, I think if the Bears had lost, one of the biggest plays would have been that 14-second sequence in the second quarter when the Lions took advantage and then they scored back-to-back touchdowns at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. But to me, the biggest play of yesterday's game was this stupid decision by the Lions coaching staff for going for that 55-yard field goal. And I know Prater's really good, especially indoors and especially obviously at home. He's really, really good. But in that situation, you are up 10. You're the Lions up by 10. There's 4 minutes and 4:08 left or something like that. The 3 points to me is meaningless if you're the Lions. All right, he kicks the field goal, you're up 13. Bears still have to score 2 touchdowns. If you kick the ball away and you hopefully kick it inside the Bears' 10-yard line or something like that, then the Bears have under 4 minutes to go. They're deep in their own territory. They have to go the length of the field not once, well, at least once, and then, get some kind of turnover, which the Lions gave it to them on a stupid pass play by Stafford. I just thought the decision to go for the field goal was a stupid decision, and it came back and it bit him in the balls.
No, I agree with you 100% on that one because it's a field position game, and you want to make your
especially
opponent,
with the clock.
Right. You want to make your opponent run the clock and use his timeouts or whatever, and give it. Now, had there been 9 minutes left, something like that, okay, I understand it. But at that point of the game, with how much time was left on the clock, yeah, you got confidence in your kicker and you like him, but it could come back and haunt you, and it came back and haunt him.
100%. And then, like I said, it got personified by the fact that the Lions had another chance to possibly run out the clock. And on the third down play, I don't know why Stafford was looking to get the first down. Run the damn football, take more time off the clock. And then, of course, what happens? The ball's deflected, and Kyle Fuller's is always around the ball. He had a really good game also yesterday. And I thought, the Jalen Johnson at the other corner, up and down through the game. He missed a couple tackles, but he also knocked down a couple of pass plays, especially the last one at the end of the game. And so I thought he had an up and down game overall. But, for his first game, I thought he played fairly decent.
For his first game, I think he played really well.
Okay.
Yes, he had some mistakes, and any cornerback's going to get beaten on some plays. It's how you react to getting beaten and coming back. He had the missed tackle. First thing when I saw that was, okay, that's a perfect sign of no tackling in training camp. And, because he tried to body tackle the guy instead of hitting and wrapping up. That's a rookie. He's going to learn from that. And I'm not making excuses. It's just, given the circumstances of no preseason, limited time in training camp, you only had like 11 or 12 padded practices, and nobody had really full go hitting or very little full go hitting. And that was a direct cause for some of that sloppy play. But going back, he made some mistakes, but I think you can live with some of the mistakes he made, and that his overall play was pretty strong.
All right, so then Stafford, and I'll get to you in just a second here. Stafford throws, again, it was a bad decision. I don't know if that's his decision. I don't know if that's the coach's play calling from the sidelines. You run the football in that situation. You take more time off the clock. You force the Bears maybe to take, I think they had one timeout left, if I'm not mistaken, at that point. So that was a bad decision. Everything about the Lions is stupid. Okay. And then to his credit, Trubisky took advantage. He throws the touchdown pass on a beautiful pass play, threw it in the exact spot where it had to go to Anthony Miller, and the Bears won the game. So in that fourth quarter, Trubisky was what? 8 of 10 for like 90 yards. Quarterback.
It was over 100, I think.
Okay. We'll look that up. And then had the quarterback rating of 143.
I took a screenshot of it, to tell you the truth.
All right. Well, I mean, here's my little toy again. Now, that sounded like a toilet flushing, but actually it's supposed to be applause. So we're applauding Mitch Trubisky in the fourth quarter because he was really good. Can we also, the last play of the game, and we have the Lions radio call, if we can cue that one up. The game should have been over. That pass, unfortunately, to the kid, DeAndre Swift, I mean, he's gonna remember that play the rest of his life, unfortunately. That was like a beautiful pass play right into his belly, and he dropped it. Here's the Lions play call.
Lions from the Bears 16, down 4, 11 seconds to go. Matthews going to work out of the gun. Bears have 3 men back on that goal line. Stafford's got it. 3-man rush for Chicago. Stafford loads and throws. Yes! Caught! No, he dropped it! Oh, you no! DeAndre Swift dropped it. It was a touchdown in his hands.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no!
Wow. Right in his hands. He couldn't have thrown the bell to throw. Right there.
You know what that reminded me of so much? Brant Brown dropping the fly ball in Milwaukee and hearing Ron Santo go, "Oh, no! The poor kid. He should not get out of bed today."
I was watching the Cubs game the other day, and there was a little pop-up behind first base, and the right fielder's coming in, and the second baseman's going over, and they're both looking at it, and then finally, I think it was the right fielder tries to make the catch, and it just falls right off his hands. And these are Major League Baseball players. You never see that mistake. You're going to see he's a rookie, and at a big time in the opening game, he choked.
Yeah, I must admit, and it's sort of like, what is it, the sadist in me, I guess. When a major leaguer looks like a little league kid every now and then, I sort of get satisfaction, much like I do when a golfer, and these guys are so unbelievable on the PGA. I've walked courses with them. I can't believe what they do. But every once in a great moon, they duff a shot or they hit a ball into the water. And I hate to say it, I get a little bit of satisfaction out of that because it shows that they're human. I felt bad for the kid yesterday, but let's face it, that won the game for the Bears. I mean, it did.
Yeah.
It absolutely did. Why don't we hear from Mitch Trubisky and Matt Nagy here? Here's Matt Nagy basically putting everything after the game into perspective.
These type of wins are the ones you remember, and they can really help you get the season going the right way. You look at the other end of it. If you don't get this win, what do we all do, right? We dwell on what happened in the first quarter, the second quarter, and really part of the third. Instead, this win shows us a couple things. It shows that we can handle adversity as a team. It shows that we stick together, which we've already checked that one off. We did that last year. But it also shows that there's some things that we need to get better at. So we're not going to let this win deodorize any of the stuff on offense, defense, or special teams that wasn't good. That's why we have our good, bad, and ugly video clip that we do on Tuesday morning that we'll show. And then we'll get better from it. But we're 1-0 right now. We appreciate that. We know that we got a lot more to go, but it's hard to win in this league. So to be able to win right now, it just really helps you for the future.
Greg, I think he absolutely capsulized yesterday perfectly and put it in perspective. Yes, we'll take the win, just like you said early on, but come on, let's face it, there's a lot of things still to work on.
True, and I'm just going to add to this a little bit because I had a text conversation after I was watching the San Diego-Cincinnati game, and the end of it, and the quarterback coach for San Diego is Pep Hamilton, who was our head coach. He used to be here with the Bears, and he was our head coach in D.C. in the XFL. So I sent Pep a text, and I said, "Hey, you got a little lucky, but it's a win." And he sends back a text. He goes, "God, it was ugly." And I said, "Yeah, but..." I sent back a text and I said, "Yeah, but it's a lot easier to work on ugly after a W than it is to work on ugly after an L." So that being said, Yeah, there was mistakes. There was sloppy play, and you want more consistent play from Mitch. But it falls on the coaches that when you get into the film room on Tuesday and you get on the practice field on Wednesday, you still got to jump on these guys for the mistakes, but it's a lot easier for those guys to take the criticism after winning a football game than it is when they lost. And they know when they made a mistake, but still they got to take the criticism, and the coaches got to hammer these guys so that hopefully you don't see the same mistakes in game 2. And generally what I've seen in football, be it college or NFL, and I think you're going to see a lot of it with the NFL this year because there was no preseason, there's usually a huge jump in play between game 1 and game 2. You see it a lot in the college game because that's their first real contact game, and you get all the rust off in that first game, and then you come out and you play a lot better in the second game. I think you're going to see that with the NFL, and hopefully the Bears are going to be a lot better as far as, making plays on a consistent basis.
It's a win and loss league, obviously, the NFL, especially in Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, there's a lot of games. So, you're going to blow a few here and there. There's a lot that you can recover from because there's so many more. In the NFL, there's only 16 games. And so when you win one or you lose one, even right off the bat, it makes such a difference, in so many different ways going forward. Let's hear one more from Matt Nagy. We talked about that final play. Poor kid, Swift drops the football. Listen, Matt Nagy knows that was a break like no tomorrow. Here he is.
Yeah, what a break. I saw that ball on the corner route go right in his hands. And you could see, I think, for a second, you could feel the whole sideline for Detroit just start jumping up and down, going crazy. And then it was they started like grabbing their heads because they saw him drop it, and we started cheering. And so now there's one play left, and that's the breaks. That it is what it is.
It is what it is. That's got to be one of the all-time sayings of the 21st century. It is what it is. Let's hear from Mitch Trubisky also now. He says, among so many other things yesterday, and I'm sure everybody here, Aldo and Greg, you both picked up on it real quickly, just the oddity of having no fans in the stands. Mitch Trubisky picked that up also.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It's a little weird. I don't know if eerie is the right word, but we definitely miss the fans, home or away. We want to get them back, but whenever it's safe to do that, it's definitely a huge part of football. But I think that just is another obstacle you got to overcome. You got to create your own energy for your team and for your offense. And I think our playmakers did that in the second half. We just gave them opportunities, and they went up and made plays. And we stuck together. So I'm really proud of the team, the way we battled, the way we came back. I think it says a lot about our character and how we just never gave up on each other.
All right, one last one from Trubisky, Greg. And, obviously through 3 quarters, I think most of the 312 area code and all the other area codes surrounding Chicago were ready to yank this guy out of the game. But in the fourth quarter, he was pretty good. And afterwards, he just said, hey, it took him a while to get going.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. It was just, football is a game of inches. So if I'm off or they're off by 1 inch, it could change the course of a play. And I think with it just being a new year, first game of the season, no fans in the stands, it's a little bit different feel. So coming off training camp, no preseason games, that was the first time we went against someone else. So you're always going to have those, but it's just trust. You just trust the reps that you got in practice. You trust that if you run the offense, it's going to come to us, and I think that's what we did. We just stuck together, we grinded it out, and we created more rhythm. But obviously, if we want to be a great team, we gotta learn from that, and we gotta start faster. And that's on me and the rest of the guys on offense to fix that and just come out rolling.
And Greg, one last thing in regards to both him, the passing attack, the overall offense. The Bears were just 2 of 11 on third down conversions, and at one point they were 0 of 7. That I thought was going to kill them. But then, like I said, the Lions just handed the game on a silver
That happens. It is what it is, as Coach Nagy said.
There it is again. It is what it is.
No, I purposely said it. Listening to that soundbite by Mitch, I think he was being very honest.
Oh, yeah.
And he was being very honest with himself. He said, hey, I wasn't very good. He knows he's got to get better. And, I'm going to say this guy, he is under so much pressure, and it's probably part of it is Chicago, in that, they've been waiting since the beginning of time to have a good quarterback. The he's not allowed to make a mistake in the media's eyes, in the fans' eyes. So it's compounded. He has a bad throw, it's compounded. Like, Gonzalez said at halftime, it's time to yank him. Well, if that was any other quarterback in the league, you're not making that statement. But it's him, the pressure's on him, and you got to give him the credit. When he had to make the plays in the fourth quarter, he made the plays, and you can't take that away from him.
I got a question for Greg. The Lions had a new guy calling the defensive plays. Matt Patricia was not calling the defensive plays for the Lions as he normally does. And we saw more zone and we saw more blitzes against Mitch Trubisky. So clearly the Bears came into the game, not knowing what this new sort of new defense was going to do. And so perhaps that's part of the reason why the first half was so challenging for Mitch.
Well, and that goes back to no preseason, because you're not seeing how a guy, even though it's very vanilla in preseason, excuse me, you're still seeing situational football. Now, given everything you said, and Mitch had this to say after the game, it might have been in the Peter King article, is that when it got to nut grinding time, Detroit went back to what they always do when they're playing man-to-man coverage.
And at that point, with secondary and third-tier guys. So, it helped, obviously. Again, we're going to give credit to Trubisky. He played well. That throw to Miller was as good as any quarterback around the league could make in that situation. And it won them the game, honestly. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, and, I want to remind everybody here again that we will already look ahead towards Game 2, which is this coming Sunday at Soldier Field against the New York Giants. And we can't really say much about the Giants because they're playing later this evening as we record this on Monday late morning here. But we will do all that, of course, coming up on Wednesday and hear from all the participants. But speaking of quarterbacks, and, listen, it's a quarterback league. It just is. So let's go around the league and talk about some of the games played yesterday. And we start with a very high-scoring game. No surprise to me. Green Bay outscoring Minnesota. Minnesota had the early lead, and then their defense must have just caved in. Aaron Rodgers, I guess, he looked over the sidelines and said, "Hey, Jordan Love, you can just sit down, kid. I'm the quarterback here." 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. Green Bay wins Game 1.
That game surprised me, and only because of how many points Green Bay put up against the Minnesota defense, which was supposed to be good. And it wasn't very good, and he just shredded them in that game. That he had put up big numbers, that didn't surprise me. Just the poor play by Minnesota, and I haven't watched any of that game yet. That's a game I still want to watch, but that one surprised me big time.
All right, how about the Geriatric Bowl down in New Orleans? It was played in New Orleans, and the Saints end up winning the game 34-23, and I say Geriatric Bowl because both quarterbacks are in their 40s now. One of them still looks pretty good because he's got a really hot wife. The other one, he doesn't look as good, probably because a lot of the criticism he took in the offseason, although they're both rich beyond belief. Tom Brady had the 2 interceptions. Drew Brees had the 2 touchdown passes. New Orleans wins the game 34-23.
Drew Brees was the better player in the game. I watched a lot of that game. I thought Brady was out of sync. I had tweeted out earlier, it was probably Friday. I said, Tampa Bay easily won the offseason. And does that mean that they're going to win the season? Generally speaking, the team that wins the offseason doesn't do shit once the season starts. And I have a feeling that's going to be the MO of Tampa Bay. I said in that tweet, I said, I see a 9-7, 8-8 team. I don't think they're anywhere near as good. And Brady doesn't have Belichick. And I don't give a damn. I know how good Tom Brady is, but he doesn't have Belichick. And that makes a big difference. And Bruce Arians doesn't do shit for me.
All right, speaking of Belichick, he wins the opener 21-11 at home against Miami. Cam Newton was pretty damn good yesterday. I've gone on record a couple of times on these podcasts. I think he's going to have a good season. I think he's in a good place with probably the best coach in the NFL. I don't think there's much doubt on that. Newton yesterday, 15 of 19 for 217 yards. And here's a stat that, doesn't surprise me, but it might opened some eyes around the NFL. I think yesterday the Patriots rushed for 217 yards. Now, that's against how they've played in the past. But then again, they have a running quarterback who had 75 yards of his own. So Bill Belichick, on top of being such a great, I don't like him to be honest with you, but he's a great coach. And he's smart enough to know to fashion his team around the personnel. And that's exactly what he did in yesterday's game and probably will all season long.
Plays to the strength of the players. And by the way, speaking of Belichick, have you seen those Subway commercials?
I have.
I think they're hilarious. Yeah. Takes out the scissors and cuts off the guy's sleeves.
Yeah, both him and Nick Saban, who two coaches I really don't like personality-wise, but they both have had good commercials recently.
Now, Saban worked for Bill in Cleveland.
I know.
Hey, one thing regarding Cam Newton, there's no way he can go the entire season with that kind of a game plan, carrying the ball 15 times. He's had injury issues in the last few years because of his physical style of playing.
Correct.
So that he doesn't have receivers. This team, to me, that was an aberration. They played against a poor Dolphins team. Once they start playing good teams, I don't think we're going to see Cam Newton playing well.
And that's a good point, and we'll have to wait and see if that's the case.
Well, the thing is, there's only one other good team in the AFC. And that's my hometown Buffalo Bills.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that because that's next on my list right here. Speaking of quarterbacks, Josh Allen was pretty darn good himself yesterday.
First time he threw over 300 yards.
312 yards, couple of touchdown passes. Buffalo beat the team that you just think is another stupid team in the NFL, the New York Jets, 27-17.
I don't know how Adam Gase got that job to begin with. He stunk as a head coach in Miami, and he turns around and he got all the control in New York. Just baffles me.
All right, well, here's a coach that I know you do love, and everybody loves Ron Rivera. And Philadelphia, when I was watching early in the game, they kept doing these game breaks during the Bears saying, oh, Philadelphia scored. Oh, Philadelphia scored again. And they're up, 14 or 17 to nothing. Washington ends up winning the game 27-17. They scored the final 20 points, the Redskins did. Ron Rivera, I think he had some kind of shots or something at halftime.
Yeah, an IV.
IV.
But it was planned.
Okay.
It was planned.
But still, it's part of the story.
Right. And the quarterback, Haskins, is basically a rookie, first game of his second year. He gave the halftime pep talk, not Ron, because Ron was getting the IV.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I got a text from Ron. I had sent him
that's so nice.
I sent him a congratulatory text after the game, and he sent back, he goes, thanks, Red. Guys are learning to be a team and play hard. He goes, I really love it.
Honestly, you have to root for a guy, no matter, yes, he's got some health struggles right now, but Ron Rivera, stand-up guy, friendly guy, give you the shirt off his back, so everybody's rooting for Ron Rivera.
I got to tell you a story about Ron, as long as we're talking about him, and this is the day he got let go. I learned so much about him as a person, number one, but just a lot about, say, life. The day he got let go by Lovey as defensive coordinator with the Bears. Now, we had gone to the Super Bowl. He did a great job, but there was a disconnect between the two of them, and, we don't want to get into that. But he gets let go, and, I go back to his office just to talk to him and tell him, what a pleasure it was to work with. And he goes, don't worry about a thing. He goes, I'll land on my feet. Within 2 hours, he had a job. And he hadn't even started to finish packing. He had a new job in San Diego inside of 2 hours.
And then the same thing happened after he left Carolina. How long was it before he was the head coach at Washington?
A week. 10 days.
I mean, he's got a lot of friends around the NFL. All right, so another team whose quarterback played very well yesterday, I don't really know too much about Gardner Minshew. I'm going to be honest with you, but he was almost perfect. 19 of 20? 19 of 20. What were they, dink and doink passes?
He's the mustache. He's trying to make the mustache come back.
I mean, why did he miss that one pass?
Looks like a porn star.
3 touchdown passes. Jacksonville wins 27-20 over Indianapolis. A team that, it's so strange. The Las Vegas Raiders just doesn't sound right. Anyway, they win 34-30 over Carolina. Baltimore beats Cleveland 38-6. Hey, you can say what you want about Lamar Jackson. He did not perform well in the postseason last year, but in the regular season, if you have him in your fantasy leagues, he's going to win you a lot of games. 20 of 25. for 275 yards and 3 touchdown passes. I mean, the guy is productive. You can't take that away from him.
No, you can't. But then how bad is Cleveland?
Well, they're bad already. They're annually bad. They're annually bad.
They'll probably have a new coach and a new GM next year. I mean, that's the way things go.
Isn't that the one place where Belichick didn't win?
That's right.
But as you want to compare it, say, to the rest of Cleveland now, was under totally different ownership, obviously then. But and Bill Belichick at that point, young first time head coach, he was trying to emulate Bill Parcells. I was working for the Giants at that time, so I had worked with Belichick for the previous 7 years. And instead of being Bill Belichick, he was trying to be Bill Parcells. And he had to learn how to be Bill Belichick. And when he went to New England, that's when he became Bill Belichick, and he became the coach that he is, and that's the best coach in the history of the game.
Well, and the smartest decision he ever made was to get out of Cleveland, Joakim Noah's favorite city. The LA Chargers beat Cincinnati 16-13. Welcome to the NFL, Joe Bauer. You're not at LSU anymore. You were sacked on your butt 3 times yesterday. Arizona beat San Francisco 24-20.
Let's back up a little bit, though.
Okay.
Did you watch the end of that game?
He actually looked pretty
decent. He took it down the field.
Yeah, he did.
They were in position to tie the game, and the kicker misses a chip shot and then pulls this, I got to pull calf muscle thing. I think that was BS right there. I think he was just, did that when he missed the kick. I thought that was a push play.
I think he'll be good. I mean, I don't think there's any question.
I was really impressed with the way he handled things.
Okay. Arizona 24-20 over San Francisco. DeAndre Hopkins, 14 catches. He's a very productive player.
Think he's happy he left Houston?
Yeah, smart move on his part. The game on Thursday, this is since we last recorded. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes right off the bat. Kansas City was just did whatever they wanted to do.
Bill O'Brien's Bill O'Brien.
Yes. And the Sunday night game, and I love it, they open up a brand new gorgeous stadium, and there's nobody there. And America's team, and I don't know if it was you. Yeah, it was you, Greg. Didn't you criticize saying, annually the Dallas Cowboys are overrated, and so is the NFC East? Was that you who
No,
tweeted?
It wasn't me, but
that was somebody
true.
else.
I don't understand about Dallas. What other owner do you see on TV as much as Jerry Jones? They put the camera on that guy 20 times a game, except for maybe Bob Kraft. You see Bob Kraft from New England a lot too, but nobody else. You ever see him during the course of a game?
Yeah, maybe he saw Steinbrenner, years back when he was the camera was always on him. I don't know. I did that. Listen, Jerry Jones had his heyday when he won a Super Bowl. Did he win 1 or 2 early on when he was owner with the Cowboys?
Oh, they won a couple.
A couple?
Yeah,
2. Okay. Yeah. He's trying to, find the past in the present, I guess, is the best way of doing it. Anyway, so that was it for the NFL. I want to just touch real quickly on college football. As we sit here recording late Monday, the Big Ten still out deciding on what they're going to do. I think it's fait accompli. I think they're going to decide to come back. Although you talk about struggle on the football field, what's going on behind the scenes between chancellors and athletic directors and coaches and boosters, that is a fight going on right now.
They're getting killed by the media too. And I'll tell you the other area that you don't hear about in the media, but the coaches are really complaining about, they're getting
recruiting.
Raped on recruiting.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's terrible. And guys are flipping, guys are saying, I'm not going there,
That in itself, Greg, might decide the day, because if these coaches get into the head of the administrators that our programs, which is the money revenue makers, is going to go down the shitter here, don't you think for a second that, in spite of all the things that these, university regents and all those people are scared about the pandemic, but they're more scared about losing money in the long run. And I think that will decide the day. So I anticipate over the next day, too, and by the time Wednesday when we do our next podcast here, I got a feeling that the Big Ten will be back.
The only thing is that we're supposed to have a vote yesterday.
They put it off for a day, only because there was so much going on in sports yesterday.
Yeah, but there is a group of administrators that don't want to play.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think they've totally sold those people on playing, but there's a lot of pressure on them to make a positive vote. It wouldn't shock me one way or the other.
All right, so the first vote was 11-3 not to play. The Big Ten with 14 teams, by the way. Never, talk about new math. Anyway, is it just a majority? And what happens if it's a tie?
I don't know the answer to that.
Flip a coin. All right, so that's going on with the Big Ten. Like I said, I think by Wednesday when we record again, I got a feeling the Big Ten will be back.
Yeah, but...
and then what happens with the Pac-14 or whatever the hell they're called?
Pac-12?
Yeah, 12, 14, whatever.
They're not going to play, and they got so many fires out there they can't breathe anyway.
Oh, my God.
Jesus.
I think the Pac-12 is dead for the year, but the big... hopefully it does come back, but they're talking... Okay, we can get them back for October 14th. Okay, 4 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. What are they going to play? A 7-game schedule?
Yeah, they would just play a conference schedule, and they'd listen. Major League Baseball came up with this cockeyed schedule to fit everything in. The Big Ten would do the same thing. And I think, part of the MO is just to make sure that they're, especially with Ohio State, is to get them into the national championship
They want to get them in the playoffs, but how do you do that when the other teams played 11 or 12 games and they've played 7?
I don't know. You might have an advantage. Your bodies might be, less wear and tear.
Yeah, from that standpoint, but still, you haven't played the other teams have competed against.
Yeah, I know. 2020
2020
is the year that you're going to throw out as soon as it's over. So
the asterisk year?
Yeah, the asterisk year. All right.
That's my big word for the day, and I'm done.
Can you spell it? Because I can't.
No.
A-S something or other.
A-S-T-E-R-I-S-K. I don't know.
The only reason I could ever spell the word Nestle's, because chocolate bars are my favorite, is because of the commercial.
Yeah.
100%. N-E-S-T-L-E-S. What? Well, never mind. I won't finish out the last part because we sort of had fun with that one. You mentioned Notre Dame early on. I watched the Notre Dame game start to finish. Wasn't very impressive. Their quarterback, who was really good last year, not so good in this game.
True, and I'll say this because I do some work for one of the Notre Dame websites periodically on their NFL prospects. The college game, first of all, some teams had just about a full spring practice, depending on when you started. Notre Dame had 2, I think. 2 practices, and that was it. And I think one, or maybe they had the 3 days or 2 days of practice leading up to hitting, and then 1 day of full pads, and that was it. They were done with spring ball. So they had no evaluation of the young guys in preparation, and then you had a scaled back training camp, and they had a little COVID scare there. They went 5 days with no practice at all, or 4 days with no practice at all. That has to interfere with your team. All told, they had a turnover in the red zone, which is unusual for Book. I think they got a pretty good team. That a lot of the negative that you saw in that game didn't bother me. I give that to the circumstances of what's been going on. They play South Florida this week. You want to see a cleaner game this week. It's week 2. And like I said earlier, you usually have a big jump from week 1 to week 2 in college football. I look for that jump with Notre Dame this week.
Slow start on offense for the Irish. They had no first downs, only 7 yards of total offense in the first quarter. The biggest play in that game for me, was the fake punt. They went for it on 4th down on the fake punt. They got some momentum. They went down the field. They scored. Opened up the floodgates at that point. Duke isn't very good, to be honest with you.
But Duke is very well coached. David Cutler does a great job.
Okay, you know the personnel a lot better than I do. So Notre Dame, listen, as we said with the Bears, doesn't make a difference. It's not a beauty contest. It's a win and loss league in college just as much as it is in the pros. Notre Dame comes away with a victory. Now, I guess there's some talk also in the ACC because, the Virginia Tech game was canceled because of, I guess, a lot of positive.
They swapped around the whole schedule.
It's so weird.
I know that.
So weird.
One of the Virginia Tech can't play. They got the COVID problem. So now Virginia's playing BC, I think, this week. And then Virginia Tech's going to play later in the year. But a bunch of teams had to swap their schedule. I'll tell you where that kills. You've got a group of guys. You've got your GAs and your so-called analysts on the college coaching staff that are always working a week ahead. So this past week, like Virginia, we're working on Virginia Tech. And now it's Saturday morning, they find out, no, we're playing Boston College now next week. They haven't done any preparation. That's going to make it real tough on that team and on that coaching staff as they prepare, going to practice this week.
Yeah, what do they say that, if they can't get enough teams to play in the ACC, that the whole league would have to shut down? And if the ACC shuts down, that puts pressure on the Big 12, it puts pressure on the Southeast Conference. I mean, again, I can't keep up with this. It's
Memphis,
the craziest year.
Memphis postponed their game for this week because they had a bunch of guys go on a party bus after their win last week.
I told you in college, you're not going to be able to handcuff and chain these kids to a bed.
And, you got to be disciplined.
Yeah, I guess.
How important is that scholarship to you?
All right, one last thing before we end this podcast. We talked about the Pac-12. I guess, listen, they are in trouble, not only because of the pandemic, because what's going on the West Coast with unfortunately all the fires out there, but let's just say after the Big Ten decides, okay, we're going to play, and the Pac-12 gets together and go, well, we're not going to be the last one standing here. What if they decide that they, going to try themselves again to play, but there's some players who have already opted out? Can they opt back in?
Yeah, it's not the NFL with the Players Association.
Okay.
Unless if they've signed with the agent, they're done.
It's a whole different story.
But if they haven't signed with an agent, sure.
Well, we had an agent down here earlier, a couple of weeks ago, and he said, don't sign.
Right.
I mean, and here's an agent saying, don't sign with me. That was pretty telling in itself.
Right. And in fact, his school is a Pac-12 school, Colorado.
Right.
His dad was the coach there, and he's close to that program. So, and he's telling players, don't make a decision now because you don't know exactly what's going to happen.
All right, I got my little sound machine. I'm just looking to see, is there anything for chicken? Because usually when the Bears win, it's like chicken dinner free on Aldo, by the way. We should have free chicken here right now.
Yeah, where is it?
It's on its way. It's in the mail like the check.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been fun, Greg. Like it's more fun doing this after a win than after a loss, right?
It's like Hallis on a Monday.
Yeah, but just wait until they lose. I mean, you have not seen cynicism until you see me after a Bears loss.
I've listened to the score since I've been in Chicago for the last 19 years.
You know. All right, folks, we'll talk to you again very shortly down the road here come Wednesday. Have a great day, everybody.